I don't know why, but I have put off doing this episode for a while. And I there's no real reason to it. I don't know why. But I hear from a lot of you that want to know, what gear do I use? What kind of equipment do I use? What do I use for my business, my website, the podcast, the YouTube videos? What do I use for all that to keep my business running? So I thought, okay, why not? Today's episode is all about the tools of the trade.
You're listening to the Steve Freeman Podcast, the real, raw truth about the pursuit of success in music, business, and life. Here's your host, hit songwriter, multi-platinum selling producer, and serial entrepreneur, Steve Freeman.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, guys, don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. It means a great deal within the Apple algorithm and how they push and promote podcast out to the masses around the world. So please, if you don't mind, you enjoy the podcast, go to Apple Podcast or iTunes, leave us 5 stars and leave us a written review. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's see, what else? Show notes, you can find those at thestevefreeman.com. You can join the private Steve Freeman Podcast Facebook group. You can also learn more about the Music Business Mindset Mentorship Program. You can learn all about that, find the show notes, everything at thestevefreeman.com. Don't forget, if you're not following me on Instagram, do that at thestevefreeman. Like I said before, I get a lot of requests of people wanting to know what kind of equipment I use, services, and what I do to keep my business going. So I thought, okay, and some of you may not be interested in this, but evidently there are a lot of you that are interested in it. So I wanted to go down a list of the most crucial, important things that I use, the gear that I use, and even services and things like that help me maintain my business and keep it growing. I want to start with my website. Websites are something kind of funny. You know, there's a lot of things out there now. There's, Squarespace and Wix and all these other people out there. But then you've got, for like your email list and your email marketing and all that, then you've got, there's MyEmma and Constant Contact and MailChimp and all these others. Before you know it, you're paying $20 a month for your website, $20 a month for your email list, and $20 for this, and $30 for that, and you end up spending like $150 to $200 a month on your website just to have a website. And for what I do with the courses and the mentorship programs, and my email marketing and all that, a good friend of mine turned me on to a company called Kajabi, and that is what I use for basically anything web related. All of my online courses, the Artist Development Academy, my email marketing, my website, the Artist Development Masterclass, the course structure, everything that I do, the complete back end for it is Kajabi. Now, I cannot tell you how much easier and simpler my life has become since I joined and started using Kajabi. I got to be real honest with you. My blog, everything is in one spot. Everything, email marketing, online courses, websites, everything. It makes it so simple. I would highly encourage you, if you are trying to build your online business, build your online presence, there is no better way and no better backbone for you to do it than with Kajabi. The folks at Kajabi were very cool when I told them I was going to do this. And they are allowing me to give you guys a 28-day free trial. If you want to go and check out Kajabi and try it, you can go see all of the different benefits, all of the different things from, like I said, email list and email marketing to online courses and the backbone for your entire website, hosting it with secure SSL certificate, everything. They are allowing me to give you 28 days free, which normally I think it's either a 7-day or a 14-day free trial if you just go to kajabi.com, which is Kajabi.com. But if you use the link that's in the show notes of this podcast, you're going to get 28 days free. And when I tell you that this has made my life so much simpler, that it's an understatement. It is. I don't know where I would be right now or what I'd be doing if it wasn't for Kajabi, in all honesty. It is that amazing. It makes everything that I do possible. It really does. So if you're interested, you want to check it out, click the link in the show notes of this podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, it'll be there in the description. Click that link and get your 28-day free trial. Every solution you could possibly think of that you'll ever need from a web presence standpoint is all covered when you build your website and you have your hosting and you do everything through Kajabi. Just makes it so much easier. Social media, a lot when I tell you guys all, the links in my bio, whatever. A lot of people use this. I use Linktree. What this allows you to be able to do on your social media accounts is have that one link, but then when you click that link, it opens up another page, and that's where you, like on mine, you can listen to the latest episode of the podcast. You can join my inner circle. You can go to the podcast on Spotify. You can sign up for the Artist Development Academy or the Artist Development Masterclass. A lot of different things right there in one spot. It just makes it very easy. So if you haven't done that, I would highly recommend that you do that. Check out Linktree. There's no affiliate bullshit, nothing like that. It's just something I use. I get nothing whatsoever for promoting it. It just makes my life easier. So, and I'm all about making things that doing things and having things that make me more efficient. That take sometimes what would take time. Time's the most valuable thing I have. So the least amount that I can spend on something, the better. Linktree makes it very simple. I get asked a lot about computers. I will run down really quickly all the computers that I use. We have a video editing suite over there. In that room, I have 2 Dell Alienware Auroras computers. Both of them have 2. See, all of this means almost nothing to me. I have a pretty good understanding of it, but both of them have a 2080 Ti graphics cards in them, so they're perfect for video. They all have, I think, 4 terabyte solid state drives inside. I have a Dell Xps 15-inch laptop that I take everywhere with me. Now, saying all this, I'm a Mac guy. I'll explain this in a minute. But I have the Dell XPS 15. Then I have a special Digital Storm Windows PC that I had custom built because it has a huge graphics card in it, so that I could do video editing and things like that. And that it would cut down on time. It renders very fastly and it exports extremely quick. Then for personally, I have a new 16-inch MacBook Pro that I love. I've been a Mac guy for years, but when I got into all of the video editing and all this stuff with the podcast and everything else, I honestly found that Windows is better. In my opinion, there's some of you cursing at me right now. Please know I'm a Mac guy through and through. But when it comes to video editing and things like that, I have just found that way more power is a lot more affordable with Windows. If I ever want to change the graphics card, I just go buy a new graphics card. If I want to put a new hard drive in it, I just put a new hard drive in it. And that's nearly impossible to do with Mac. So I wanted my business systems, if you will, to be upgradable and not have to go buy a new computer every time the latest hard drive comes out or the latest graphics card or sound card or whatever. So I just found that it's easier for me in that. So I've got the 2 Dell Alienware Auroras. I've got the Dell XPS 15-inch laptop. I've got the Digital Storm 15-inch laptop, the new 16-inch MacBook Pro. In the recording studio, I use a 2017, 27 or 32-inch iMac. I don't remember which one of those it is. But anyway, it's an iMac in the studio. That is I think it's the 3rd or 4th iMac that I've used in the studio. And I actually prefer it because I've got the big 75-inch monitor above the iMac. And I like having the 2 screens. And I always liked that. I used to have the trash can, and I got rid of the trash can for whatever reason. I don't like it as well as I like the iMac. I just like the functionality of the iMac, and especially with the 5K Retina display. Yeah, it's just awesome. So that's in the recording studio, the iMac. As far as YouTube videos and the podcast, I'm a huge believer in Sony cameras. I love Sony cameras. I have the A7 III. I've pre-ordered and waiting on the A7S III. I've got two A6400s, two A6500s. I've got an RX100 Mark V, an RX100 Mark VI. I got a lot. I've got almost all the Sony cameras. Lenses. I use a lot. The Sony 24 to 70 G Master. I've got the Sony 10 to 18 millimeter, a Zeiss 55 millimeter, and a Zeiss 28 millimeter, plus a Sigma Art 20 millimeter and a Sigma Art 30 millimeter. The one that we use for the podcast, the exact same setup that I use for the podcast, is a Sony A6500 with the Zeiss 28 millimeter lens. And I think it's a f2.0, I think is what it is. So that's what I use for the video on the podcast is the Sony A6500 and the A6400 sometimes. But the main camera in here is the A6500. One of the things I like about the A6400 and the A6600 is they do not have a recording time limit. The A6500 does have a record time limit, but I don't record on the camera. I'll tell you more about that in just a second. So like I use the Rodecaster Pro, but I don't record to the Rodecaster Pro. I use the Sony A6500, but I'm not recording to the camera, in the camera. I'll walk you through all of that. That just brings me to the podcast. I get a lot of emails and messages about what I use for the podcast. So here we go. As you can see, my favorite microphone of all time, and I've got a mic closet in there with $30,000 worth of microphones in it that I'm going to sell because I just don't need them. My favorite microphone of all time, whether it's for vocals on a record or vocals, podcast, broadcasting, that kind of thing, is the Shure SM7B. There's just no better microphone in my opinion. I've got some of the RE20s. I don't like my voice on the RE20. It's a little thin for me. I like the full bodiness of the Shure SM7B. So I like that. These are blue mic stands. Got 4 or 5 of them laying around here. For the podcast itself, everything runs through a Rodecaster Pro. I was one of the first, and it might have been the first person in the country to get the Rodecaster Pro. And you can, if you don't know about the Rodecaster Pro, you can check out my videos on YouTube where I go in detail and talk about them. But I think it's a great, for podcasting, it's almost perfect. I mean, now you've got all these people coming out and competing with it. But in all honesty, with the effects that are on board and everything here, I mean, sometimes when COVID's over and I actually have guests back in the studio, it allows me to have 4 guests. It connects to the computer. I can play computer audio through here. I can hook it to my smartphone. I can hook it via Bluetooth to something else if I want to do a phone call. It's just perfect. So I highly recommend the Rodecaster Pro. Now, as I was saying, even though I use the Rodecaster Pro, I do not record the audio to the Rodecaster Pro. I don't record it to the internal memory card. I don't even record it. Well, I kind of record it to the computer, but I'm going to tell you about that now. The software that I use for the podcast is a software called Vmix. For those of you that are Mac users, I would highly recommend you check out Ecamm. Yes, you can use things like OBS and all of that good kind of jazz. But I really, in all honesty, I'm on Windows for the podcast, the computers in here that run the podcast system. I'm on Vmix. And what Vmix allows us to do is, do things like this where if I want to talk about the merch, I can change up the scenes and do all kinds of cool stuff. I can have the name scroll across the bottom. There's a bunch of stuff in here that I could do that I don't. But for purposes of the podcast, what happens is in one of the computers in here in the podcast studio, I have an Elgato 4K 60 Pro internal card. So I'm not using like a cam link or something like this. Is an actual card that slides like your graphics card that goes inside the inner workings of the computer, and you can get 4K up to 60 frames a second, and it's crystal clear, and it's amazing. So what I do is I go from the camera into that card, that video capture card, the Elgato 4K 60 Pro. It may even be the 4K 60 Pro Plus now. I'll have to look and see. Actually, I'm not going to do that because I'd have to tear the computer apart. I'm not doing it. It's the 4K 60 Pro, I believe. But I go from the camera into that graphics card or that video capture card in the computer. Then Vmix, I tell that I want this input to be that camera, that card. So that's how we get the video up here. And I actually record the video to the solid state drive on the computer that's running through Vmix. Now, for the audio for the podcast, instead of recording it on the Rodecaster Pro, I record it into Vmix. This is one of the very cool features. And those of you that are out there that are Windows people that are doing or want to do podcasts, this is one of the very cool features that I love. It makes it so simple. There is a button that will allow me to select to record a WAV file at the same time it's recording the video. And what I do is select the Rodecaster Pro as an audio input here. So the audio is coming from the processing through the Rodecaster Pro, and it's recording that on a separate WAV file, separate from the video. So in post, when I go to edit the video version of the podcast and even the audio version, my WAV file is there. My video file is there. When I pop them into Adobe Premiere Pro, which is the video editing software that I use, all I have to do is drag that WAV file over and line it up directly with the video file that has the camera audio attached to it, and it lines up and syncs perfectly. So then for the audio version, I just have to do my post-processing and everything that I do in Pro Tools for the post-processing on the podcast, and then just bring that over and line it straight up with the video. And it works seamlessly. It's absolutely perfect, and I love it to death. So if you're a Windows person, I highly recommend, even if you, when I haven't live streamed in a while, and those y'all have been letting me know that I haven't live streamed in a while, and I get it. I'm going to start live streaming again. But when I was live streaming, I used Vmix to live stream with, because even in live streaming, the potential that it gives you, some of the tools in there like Vmix Social and things like that, unbelievable. The tools are unbelievable. So if you are using something like OBS or Stream Elements OBS or, some software like that, I'm telling you, step up. You will not regret it. Especially if you're using Windows, go with Vmix. If you are on Mac, you want to take a look at Ecamm. Ecamm is basically, it's a different company, completely different company, but it does the same thing as Vmix, but Ecamm is for Windows. Ecamm is for Mac. Vmix is for Windows. Go check it out because I think it's invaluable. It really is invaluable. Even if you are just doing content, you could do what I'm doing. You could record all of your YouTube videos straight through Vmix. It's a really cool setup, and I really enjoy it. Lighting, all of the lighting in here that we have for here, as well as the recording studio, and everything that we have when we go shoot music videos and are working on films and stuff like that. All of the lighting is Aperture. I love their lights. Whether it's the RGB lights that change colors or it's this big dome light that's right there. I think that's the Aperture 300D. No, that's the 120D. But you can find these if you go to B&H, Photo Video, Amazon, any of those places, you can find them. But I highly recommend Aperture lighting. It's awesome. I think it's Apurture, I think is how they spell it. But it's Aperture and great quality stuff. I can tell you, I've probably got $10,000 worth of their lights, and I've never had a problem with any of them. I've got some LED panels. I've got two or three. We've got two 120Ds. We've got one of the 300Ds. I've even got some of their very small handheld light. They're amazing. So if you really want to up your game, and they're affordable as well, you go on B&H, you look at some of the lighting stuff in it. The lighting, folks, I'll tell you, the lighting gets expensive. It can get really, really expensive. But Aperture is great quality stuff. I've never had any problems with it. It works every single time. And they all have these remotes. So I can set up multiple different lights on this one remote and control. Like if I want, I can turn the light off if I want with one button, which is nice. Turn it back on. So you can control everything. So you're not getting up and having to turn dials. I can increase or decrease the brightness of this light and the tone of this light, all with the remote. So there you have it. And I think that's about everything. Oh, in the recording studio, I get asked about my interface all the time. I use a Universal Apollo, the new Apollo. What is it? The Twin X Quad, I think is the one I use with the 4 processors. I used to have the X8, and I just don't need that many inputs anymore. So I went and bought 2 of the Twin X quads, and I put one at the house, and I've got one up here at the recording studio, so that everything matches up. So I can take projects from the studio, I can take them to the house and work on them if I want in my studio there, or transfer them back and forth. And almost everybody that I know now is using Universal Apollo interfaces. And if you're not, you should be. In my opinion, I was an Apogee guy for years and years and years. But I love the Universal Audio Apollo line of interfaces, so go check those out for sure. I think that is about it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I use. Tripods, somebody will ask. Tripods, I use Benro and Manfrotto tripods. I have a couple. I tell you, one of the new things I bought was one of the new DJI Ronin S gimbals. I bought one of those. Absolutely love it. Haven't used it. Actually, we did use it. We used it on the Danielle Khalil Midnight Girl video, which was pretty cool. And then, you've got your various light stands and cords and cables and dollies and all that kind of stuff. But none of that. I don't use all that on a regular basis. But as far as the recording studio, the podcast, the videos, everything that I do, that's a pretty good list of just about everything that I use. Monitors in here in the podcast studio. I've got 2 42-inch widescreen ViewSonic monitors. In the recording studio, I said I've got the 75-inch TV up there. And then for video editing, what would it say? It's the 39-inch ultra-wide curved monitor because I love the colors on that thing. And then I've got a couple more 42-inch monitors on either side of the curved monitor. Color's important when it comes to video and video editing. You got to make sure, like those of you that out there that have gaming monitors, they are not great for coloring. They are not good at all. So don't use those when you're color correcting for your YouTube videos or music videos or anything like that. Get something that can really match the tonality of the camera that you've chosen that are pretty true to color. And the gaming monitors are great for gaming, but they are not good for color correction. I think that's about it in here and over there. I cannot stress enough to you how valuable the back end of my business with Kajabi is. Seriously, kajabi.com. If you'd like the 28-day free trial, click the link in the description of the video or in the show notes of the podcast. And Kajabi was nice enough to allow me to give you guys a twice longer than normal trial period. So you can try it out for free for 28 days, basically a month. So guys, I think that's about it. It's tools of the trade. That's what I use. It's equipment I love. I will say I'm addicted to gear. I am 100% addicted to microphones and audio gear. And I'm even more so addicted to video gear with cameras and lenses. I just love this stuff. I absolutely love it. I look for every opportunity I can to use it. I would give anything if I had time to do a weekly vlog. I've had people ask me to do it, and I would love nothing more to do it. I just don't have the time. It would require me to bring somebody on that could just film all the time, that just follow me around and film. And because I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to follow around with the camera because I'll put too much thought into it. What am I going to say? I don't have time for it. Who knows? Maybe at some point, I'll just bring somebody on. They can follow me around with the camera and we'll do a weekly vlog or something like that. But I would love to do it just because I love the equipment. I love talking about the equipment. I love using the equipment. It's just a lot of fun. And in all honesty, guys, the tools that you choose to use, they can determine your success or failure. They really can. You want the highest quality that you could possibly put out. You don't ever want to just put something out to put something out. It needs to look right. It needs to sound right. It needs to be professional. And the equipment that you use, the tools that you use, it does matter. And they make a difference in the type of house you're building. So that's what I use. If you have any questions about it, feel free, hit me up. I'll explain it to you, or I'll tell you more. I'll send you pictures, whatever you need. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You asked for it. So finally, here you go. Tools of the trade. Guys, thank you for being here. Don't forget, everything you need to know is in the show notes. Come join our private Facebook group at facebook.com/The Steve Freeman. You can join the group right there. You can join my inner circle at thestevefreeman.com. That's where you'll also find the show notes if you want to check them out, or go back and listen to previous or watch previous versions of the podcast. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Until next time, keep being creative, keep pressing the boundaries, and there's nothing wrong with being independent. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us for the Steve Freeman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow Steve on social media at the Steve Freeman.